Hello, everyone, and welcome to lesson number 1 from the Masterwork. I'm so excited to start this with you. Lesson number 1 is all about finding your purpose. And remember, the ultimate goal of this program, of this training program, is for you to experience a life that truly fulfills you. So, not just success from external measurements, but a sense of deep satisfaction within you. And it's based on my journey, it's based on the lessons that I learned throughout my life. I will use my own life as an example throughout the training courses as we go along. And where it all started for me was the day that I, for the first time, connected to my true life's purpose. And I'd been talking about purpose, I'd been even teaching about purpose for years before that. And I'd been to seminars on the subject, I'd read books about it. And I remember sitting down with a pen and paper many times and thinking to myself, I'm now going to define my purpose, and I'm going to have a nice clean sentence or a nice clean paragraph that I can put on my wall, and that's going to drive me going forward. And I had various versions of it. I had paragraphs written out, I had short sentences, and yes, I did have a period where it was sitting on my wall, but it never actually connected to me. It never drove me. And now I understand that there was a missing step, and I was looking for this information in the wrong place. And when I realized that, I thought to myself, I need to go out there and I need to teach as many people as possible what this missing step is. So before we get to that, I want to talk a little bit about purpose and the different levels of it. But really what we're going to be going through is your why. The why is what is going to drive you. And it's so important because when you are living out the life of your dreams, a truly fulfilled life, you're still going to come up against challenges. You're still going to come up against things that go wrong. You're still going to have your days where things are not going your way. But when you have a strong why, which is connected to your soul, what you find is that you blast through those challenges with relative ease. You still feel the negative emotion, you still have the ups and downs of everyone else, but it's as if you have this thing dragging you through it. And that's for me what really purpose is about. So to give you an idea of my journey, the first phase that I went through, which I don't know how accurate this is, but I would assume at least 80% of the world's population, was trying to find my why for survival. So think about this. If you ask most people on the street, why do you get up and go to work every day? First of all, you'll probably get a kind of strange look because many people haven't thought of that before. But secondly, the answer you'll probably get is because I need to earn some money, I need to pay the bills. So that's what we call survival. So your why is I need to accomplish, I need to get up every single day and I need to go to work because I need to do it to survive. And that's at least 80% of the world, maybe even more than that. And I've been there. Many people on this training would have been there before. Your back's right up against the wall and you're like, I need to do whatever it takes because otherwise there's going to be a disaster, and that drags you through. Now the next level past that is status. So your why is so that your status goes up. I went through this phase, and if I'm really honest with myself, for a large period of time, the reason why I was so interested in finding my purpose is that I thought it would make my business grow faster and my status would go up. I would look successful. So you're driven to accomplish so that you look better in the eyes of other people. Now, that's not your purpose, and that's not a big enough why. Next phase is freedom. This is, I went into that as the next phase. And when people say, what drives you? You say, well, I want time and money freedom. So again, my why is I want to accomplish this great goal because I'm looking for something. And what I'm looking for is freedom. So looking at those first 3 stages, one thing that you will notice is that everything is based on me. So in survival, it's based on me surviving. In status, it's based on how I look to other people. And in freedom, it's how I get the benefit of having time and money freedom. And when I went through all those phases, even though I had purpose statements and I had an idea of what my purpose was, I never really truly connected with it, and it never gave me this unlimited inspiration that so many people had spoken about. And what I realize now is that there's really a fourth stage. And the fourth stage is so rare that it's probably only 1% of the population. And they are the people that truly connect to a purpose. And the question of that purpose is, how can I serve the world? It's completely not about you, it's about other people. How can I be used for the greater good? How can I take what I've learned? How can I take my unique skills and use it to serve the greater population? When we get to that stage, then we are truly working on our purpose. Now, the amazing thing about this is the moment you realize that and the moment that you connect with that, you accomplish everything you wanted in the first three stages with ease. You get the time and money freedom, you get the survival, you get the status that you want, but now you're actually concentrating what your true purpose is, and that is to serve other people. So to explain this concept a little bit deeper, we're going to go through one of the most foundational universal laws, and that is that everything must express the highest version of itself. So think about this. Think about in nature. If you have an acorn, what is the purpose of the acorn? The acorn's purpose is to express the highest version of itself, to grow into that, which in this case is an oak tree. And then once it's expressed the highest version of itself, its purpose is to collaborate with the greater whole. So to collaborate with the rest of nature, collaborate with the rest of its ecosystem. If we look at the example of the human body, we have two cells that come from a mother and a father. The two cells combine and they start developing, they start dividing into, differentiating into different types of cells. So as they express the highest version of themselves, the cells then turn into liver cells, they turn into heart cells, they turn into lung cells, until the highest expression is the human being. And then once the highest expression has been met as being the human being, those cells collaborate with each other. So the heart cells collaborate with the lung cells collaborate with the liver cells. So in nature, what follows the laws that are followed is the purpose of everything is to grow into the highest version of itself and collaborate with the rest of the ecosystem. Now, why is this so important? Because we are part of this whole. We follow the exact same laws. So how we fit in is we are part of this whole. We are a unique expression of a universal intelligence, and we follow the same laws. So therefore, to connect to our true purpose that is in line with these laws, it's got to be growing into the highest version of ourselves and then collaborating with our ecosystem. So, to find true purpose, we first got to find our unique expression of gifts. So, like I said, you are a unique expression of this universal intelligence or the source, whatever name you want to call it. So we've got to find what is our unique expression. And when I work with people, this is something I really try and get across. Irrespective of your education, irrespective of your background, no one has your exact story. No one has your exact history. No one has the exact lessons that you have learned. No one has the exact perception that you had of the lessons that you learned. So it doesn't matter who you are, you have value because you are a unique expression. There's no one else quite like you that has the same background and history as you. So it means that your ability to serve your greater community is different to everybody else. So we've got to use these unique expression or gifts to serve the greater whole and use it for the greater good. Your purpose is based on love. Your purpose is based on abundance. It's based on giving. It's based on creation, not competition. Now, I want to talk about this last point a little bit practically because I've worked with people in the past that say, My dream is to start a business, and I want to be an artist. But the problem is that there's so many other artists. There's so many other photocopy shops, or there's so many other accountants. There's so much competition, and I'm scared to take this step, even though it's my dream, because there's so much competition out there. And the reality is that in this abundance philosophy, which we'll discuss at one of our next lessons, there is no limit, because everything is unique. So what does that mean? All we have to do is create value. It doesn't matter about the competition. It doesn't matter about how many other artists there are, how many other photographers there are, how many other photocopy shops there are. If your mindset is to create value and constantly increase the amount of value that you create for society in your unique way, there is no limit to what is possible. So I want to say straight away that if you have a dream, and one of the reasons why you're not going for that dream is you're worried about competition, the mere fact that you have a heart's desire means that you have the skill set within you to acquire that dream, and there is no limit to our potential. And you don't have to worry about competition, you just have to worry about creating in your own unique manner. Okay, so I mentioned the missing step. So this was the step that held me from truly connecting to my purpose for most of my adult life. And the step I was missing, or what I was doing wrong, is I was looking for the answers in my logical mind. So what we really have is we have two areas of information where we can get information from. We have the head or the mind, and then we have the heart or the inner mind. When I say the heart, I don't mean heart in a literal sense. The heart is a metaphor for this inner mind, this inner wisdom. And the problem with the head, the logical mind, yes, it is our intellect. It's where our education lies, but it's also where our ego lies. It's where our fears lie, and it's where our limitations lie. All the limitations we're going to be discussing in one of the next lessons, it creates analysis paralysis. And our head is often in a state of scarcity. It's often in a state of what if this goes wrong? What if I fail? It's where all our fears sit. Now you can imagine if you're using that part of you to define and connect with your purpose, you're never really going to connect, because those fears and those limitations and the ego that's trying to protect you will stop you from really connecting to who you truly are. So your heart, or your deeper mind, that's connected to a different information source. That's connected to the universal source of knowledge. That's connected to the universal source of wisdom, where all information that has ever been created is of access to you. And this has been spoken about in philosophy and religion since the beginning of time, is that there is a wisdom that we can connect to. And it's not in our head, it's through our heart. Your heart knows your true desire, and it knows who you authentically are. So in order for us to connect to what our purpose for being on this earth is, we need to connect to who we really are, and it's not through the head, it's through the heart, and that was missing. And how this worked out for me was, if you know my story, you know that I went through a really, really challenging time, and through desperation, I started some habits, and I started some rituals, because I knew I just had to do something to get out of the position that I was in. And the first time I connected to my life's purpose, I was in this meditative state, but it was in a different state than I'd been in before. And suddenly it came to me. And it came to me with such clarity and such certainty. I wrote it down, and I knew that that was my life's purpose, and that it never happened to me before. And what I realize now is that it's one of the first times that's through this meditative state that I was in, I got out of this head and into this heart, and I connected to that infinite well of wisdom. If you think of what a well is something where water is coming through, and it's a constant stream. It's a constant stream, and it's almost unlimited. And that's what the heart is connected to. It's an infinite well of wisdom that knows all the answers. And for your life's purpose, for you to define it once and for all, we need to learn how to connect to that. Okay, so connecting to the heart. Now, again, this is going to be playing out in many of our lessons because connecting to your heart is one of the keys to living a truly fulfilled life. But we're going to touch on it today. And one of the simplest ways of connecting to that different side of you and to get out of the head is you close your eyes, you take some deep breaths, and you start calming your system down. So what I do is I close my eyes, I take a few deep breaths, 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out. So while we're on this training, let's do that. Let's close the eyes, 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out. You place both your hands on your heart. So place both your hands on your heart. Eyes are still closed. We're breathing deep. 5 seconds in. 5 seconds out. And now the next few breaths, I want you to visualize as the oxygen comes into your mouth, it flowing through the heart and then back out the heart again. So we're really bringing our awareness outside of the head and into the heart. So let's do that for 1 or 2 more cycles. So close the eyes, breathing in 5 seconds in, feel that, visualize the air going through the heart. And as you breathe out, visualize the air going through the heart again. We're going to do that for a few cycles. You'll feel that the longer you do this, your system will start calming down. And then to really open it up, we're going to start thinking about 5 things that we're grateful for. Your heart gets opened up by gratitude. So just think about anything. It doesn't have to be big things, it can be small things. It can be the fact that you have a warm blanket at night. It can be the fact that you have a family. It can be a fact that you have shoes to walk in. It can be a fact that you have water to drink. It can be the fact that we have access to information like you do now through the internet because of technology, whatever it is. But think of 5 things that you are truly grateful for and feel that emotion of gratitude well up inside of you. What's happening now is we're getting out of this logical mind full of limitations, full of ego, full of fear, and we're connecting to our true essence through the heart, who we authentically are. And I want you to think about this. If you want to know who you authentically are, think of a child. I've got a 3-year-old, and I often look at him and I think to myself, that is who we authentically are. What is a 3-year-old like? Number 1 is they experience joy. Joy is their natural state. It's their default setting. Now, anyone with a 3-year-old will tell you that they're not joyful all the time. They feel emotions, they feel anger, they feel resentment, they feel mostly anger, they feel anxiety, they feel all the emotions we do. But what happens, they don't indulge in those emotions. You can have a 3-year-old, he can be as angry as a person possibly can be, and 30 seconds later he's laughing. Why is that? Because a toddler lives in present time consciousness. His default setting is joy. He feels emotions, but he gets out of that emotion quickly. He doesn't indulge with it because he's living in present time consciousness. He lives moment to moment. What else do you know about a 3-year-old? They're confident. You speak to any 3-year-old and you say, who's the fastest? Me. Who's the biggest? Me. Who's the strongest? Me. There's absolutely no issue in self-confidence. There's also no issue in certainty. Do you want this car or do you want this car? I want that car. Do you want this shade of blue or that shade of blue? I want that shade of blue. They have complete certainty. Now, why is that? Because at that age, they are connected to their authentic self. And it's only when they get older, probably around the age of 6 or 7, where they start developing this conscious mind more, and the fears, the limitations, and the ego starts developing. Then suddenly, I don't know if I want that. Then suddenly they start to indulge in these negative emotions for longer. Then suddenly they don't have that certainty anymore. So, no matter how old you are, no matter where you are in your life stage, you're not an anxious person, you just think you're anxious. You're not an angry person, you just think you're angry. We create our reality as adults through our thinking, not who we authentically are. So this technique, and especially if it's done regularly through repetition, is it takes you out of the head and you start connecting to your authentic self, and you start getting the characteristics that that 3-year-old has. Present time consciousness, certainty, joy. Okay, so that is the technique we're going to use. Now, before we use this technique, a couple of questions we need to ask ourselves. Now, you have a workbook, and hopefully you have it close by. But we first have to start getting things in order before we get to this point of having a paragraph or a sentence which connects to our life purpose. So the questions we have to ask ourselves is, number one, what brings us enthusiasm? So the word enthusiasm comes from the Greek word entheos, and entheos means God within. So to me, that's really all the proof I need that enthusiasm is a sign that you're connecting to your inner self, your authentic self. So ask yourself, what are you doing when you're enthusiastic? What is it that when you do it, you don't need outside motivation? You're just inspired to do it. Even if you're tired, someone says, can you do this for me? You have enthusiasm. So if we want to define our purpose, number one is we've got to figure out what brings us enthusiasm. Don't worry about what's logical or what will work in the marketplace. You don't have to worry about that now. It's all about what is enthusiasm. For me, as an example, I get enthusiastic when I teach. So I'll never forget, I did a presentation a couple of years ago, and for the week before that, I had viral meningitis. I was in hospital twice because the headaches and the fever was so wild. And the morning of the presentation, I was still shaking, but it was a big presentation. It was for over 150 people at a university, and at that point, it was probably the most important presentation I would have ever done. And I woke up in the morning, I was still shivering because my temperature was high, and my wife said to me, you cannot do this presentation. And I said, I have to do it. I can't miss this. This is such an amazing opportunity for me. So I got up and I kind of crawled into the car, and I was driven there because I didn't believe that I had the ability to drive myself. And I arrived, and they called me up, they introduced me, and I stood up, and I was standing next to the person who was going through my biography, as usually happens. And I started speaking. And within about 2 to 3 minutes, my achiness was gone. My energy levels were at 100%. I felt completely alive, even though I was still physically very ill. And that's when I realized that was my enthusiasm. So for me, my enthusiasm comes from teaching. My enthusiasm comes from speaking. So anytime I'm teaching somebody a concept that I believe can make a big impact on their life, that's where I have my enthusiasm. I don't need external motivation. Okay, the next thing is, what are you good at? So again, using myself as an example, I'm good at communicating. So I'm good at speaking. I'm good at teaching, especially to large groups. So I had number one, I'd found my enthusiasm, and then I had what I was good at, what skill set I had. So some people, it would be, what you're good at is you might be good at numbers. You might be good at figuring out complex situations and making it simple. You might be good at creativity. You might be good at bookkeeping. You might be good at designing things for people. It's almost unlimited to what things we can be good at. But what are you good at? Plus what brings you enthusiasm. Next question, who do you love working with? So do you love working with children? Do you love working with adults? Do you love working with sportsmen? Do you like working with business owners? Do you like working with addicts? Do you like working with the elderly? Who do you really enjoy working with? So for me, at first, I used to think that I enjoyed working with entrepreneurs, and I do. But then after a while, I realized that some of the people that I really connected with and really helped were not entrepreneurs. Some of them were stay-at-home moms. Others, worked in corporate jobs. So I started thinking to myself, well, then what is it? If it's not entrepreneurs, is it change makers? What is it? And I got to this answer: is I like working with high achievers. Now, what does that mean? High achievers does not necessarily mean that you've achieved amazing things yet, but it's high in your values to achieve. So you're somebody that has high standards. You're somebody that wants to achieve great things in your life. That's who I love working with. If I work with someone who doesn't really want to achieve and doesn't really want to grow, I'm not going to be able to serve them properly. Okay, so once you find out what brings you enthusiasm, what you're good at, the next thing is, what problems do you solve? So if you take your enthusiasm and your talent and you work with those group of people, how do they benefit? Not how do you benefit, how do they benefit? What is the problem that you solve for them? Okay, so for me, I'll go through my purpose statement in a bit, but what I do is I teach the abundant mindset. I teach I use all types of tools. And how do they benefit? Is that when a person connects with what I teach, they have the ability to create and experience a life that truly fulfills them. So that is the benefit that somebody gets when they work with me and I'm living my life's purpose. Okay, so let's think of some other examples. I had one person that said to me, yes, well, I'm just a bookkeeper. I've had other people say, well, I'm just an insurance salesman. I'm just a financial advisor. I'm just an attorney. I had one person who was an attorney. He said, I just argue all day. So the problem there is, look, either that's not your purpose, but what often happens is it's the way we're framing it. So let's think of an accountant or a bookkeeper. You say, well, what is your purpose? Well, I do books, and I get paid a salary for books. It would be very different, that perception. And what about this perception? I make sure that business owners have control over their finances so that their business thrives and they can give the life that their family deserves. Because we know that, especially if you're a business owner, the quality of your life, the quality of your family life, a big part of it is based on how your business runs. Because if the business goes downhill, it affects all other areas. So imagine you being a bookkeeper and you wake up every morning and you saying to yourself, I'm going to help as many businesses as possible today get control over their finances, know what their financial scorecard is, so that their business can grow and thrive, and also they have the time to spend with their family, which is really important to them. Can you see the big difference between I'm just the bookkeeper or I'm just a financial advisor to that? Let's use the financial advisor. Oh, well, I just give advice on investments. I sell life insurance. What about I teach people how to set up their financial future so that when they are older, they can enjoy their retired years? Just by me saying that, I visualize somebody that gets to a point of retirement and they have this sense of calm because they know that their financial needs are met. And it was the financial advisor that advised them on different products and services that got them there. Now, if you're a financial advisor and you wake up every morning and that's what you're thinking of, you might be meeting for a meeting a 20-year-old, but you thinking your vision of the future is, I'm going to teach him principles so that he has financial freedom so that he can enjoy his retirement years. So it doesn't matter where you're at, and it doesn't matter what you are doing. I don't care what service you are doing in this world. If you perceive it in this way, you will find that your purpose starts to come out of it. Okay, so this is, once we have the answers to this, so you go through this workbook and you write down all these answers, we can put it into a statement. Very simply, my purpose is, what is it that you do? So for me, I teach. Who do you do it for? My purpose is I teach high achievers or change makers. How do they benefit? I teach high achievers or change makers the abundant mindset so that they can create and experience a life that truly fulfills them. So my purpose is, what do I do? Who do I do it for? And how do they benefit from it? So here's mine. I teach high achievers how to create an abundant state of mind so that they can express the highest version of themselves and live a truly fulfilling life. That is the statement that came to me in that dark room where for the first time I got out of this mess of my head and I connected to my authentic self for the first time. Okay, so once we have that statement, I always think of the aeroplane, because the aeroplane is when you sit next to somebody and sometimes you have these conversations and they want to break the ice, and the first thing they're going to say is, what is it that you do? Now, you don't want to overload them with information, but you want to say something. So what you say is, you take the last bit of your purpose statement. I help high achievers live truly fulfilling lives. And they go, oh, that's interesting. How do you do that? Well, I do it through this, through this, through this, through this. So that's how you take a purpose statement, a big paragraph, and you turn it into just a catalyzing statement. So what is that you do? I help high achievers create fulfilling lives. Oh, okay, that's interesting. How do you do that? Well, I do X, I do Y, I do Z. Now, before we go on, there's a concept I want to go through quickly. Because with some people, when they look at something like this, where, my purpose to me is quite clear and it's quite direct and it's probably not going to change much over a period of time. Or I don't know, but it's been roughly like this for quite some time. And if you're sitting there and you're listening to this, you go, oh, but I don't know if I can get a purpose as big as that, or I don't know. I have so many interests and I find that I go from one to the next and I'm confused, and then you start beating yourself up, you start feeling horrible about yourself because you say, all these other people seem to have their purpose, but I don't. I want you to know this. There are actually two different types of people. There's the one type, which is me, which you have this purpose and you pound it. And it's just so clear to you, and it's quite big. It's quite... it can have quite a vast impact, and it's what drives you every single day. But there are other types of people where your purpose it can change. And when I was taught this, and I can't remember who it was that taught this, is they used the analogy of a hummingbird. There are some people where your interests change. And you'll do one thing for a little while, and then you'll move on and you'll do another thing and you'll do another thing. So it's not this big, grand purpose that you're going to dedicate your life to. You have different areas of interest in different stages of your life, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. So this statement of purpose that you're going to create now, that doesn't mean it will be your statement of purpose for the rest of your life. It doesn't mean that you have to figure it out right now. What's more important than coming up with a paragraph is the process that you're going through to get there. The questions you're asking yourself, the ability of getting out of your head and into your heart, that is way more important than a sentence. So if you go through this and after a while you feel frustrated because you just don't have that perfectly polished paragraph, that is absolutely fine. Or if you're confused because you think, I have so many different interests, so how do I lock down what is the one thing? No, you don't have to lock it down. All I say is this. Number one is you've got to get the answers from your heart, not your head, because your head is full of all our fear and insecurities. And number two, as long as your purpose is in line with serving other people, it doesn't matter if it changes from time to time, and it doesn't matter if you don't have this perfectly eloquent sentence that you can put it in yet. All that matters is you getting this information from the right place, and it's based on serving others. It's not based on you getting things. You getting things is the natural side effect of you living your purpose. If you get up every single morning and your guidance system is your purpose, all the external stuff will come with ease. But it's the side effect. It's not the actual goal. The goal is serving humanity. Okay, so what is next? So over the next week, what I'm going to ask you to do is to go through that worksheet, take a pencil or do a couple of, print out a few versions of it. What I did when I went through this process is I had an A4 workbook with lots and lots of pages, and I wrote out my purpose statement probably hundreds of times if I think about it, and I kept on changing it and changing it and changing it until it got to a point where I felt an emotional connection to it. And remember, that process of writing it out many times and scratching it out and throwing it in the bin, that was where the true magic was happening. That is where I was getting everything in alignment. So get that A4 workbook so that you can write notes, get the worksheet, and before next week, all you need to do is you need to get to a point where you have asked yourselves those deep questions and you've started to write out your answers. If you can just get to that point, having at least something down on paper that is in the right direction is what we want to have. And then over the next 6 to 8 weeks, we will be coming back to that and we will be refining. So I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you got value out of this. This is the first lesson. We've got such a journey ahead of us. I will just say this. Number one is put in the time and put in the discipline. With online courses, there's this big elephant in the room where you know that certain people won't go through the course and other people will go through the course, but they won't take the time and take that piece of paper and put the pen to paper. Their limiting beliefs and their insecurities and their fears will stop them from doing it. Know that there will be a percentage of people that are going through this that will do that. But I'm just going to strongly suggest that you take this time, this opportunity to make a permanent impact in your life, and you put in the time and you put in the effort. There's this universal law of cause and effect, and the more time and effort you put into this process, the more you will get out of it and the greater results you will get. So for the next 6 to 8 weeks as we're going through this course, put aside time every single day where you will put thought to this. Henry Ford said, thinking is the hardest work that there is. And what he meant by that is just mental activity, thoughts running through the head and worrying about the future and thinking about the past. That's not thinking. That's just mental activity. But to actually sit down and consciously put your mental energy to these deep questions takes effort. And that's why there will be certain people that aren't willing to do it. But the ones that do, the ones that put in the effort, they get the results 100% of the time. So enjoy the process. I'm always contactable via email and through social media. But I will see you at the next training. Goodbye.